All right, let's talk about finances. All right, before we go into this video, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that I don't have any really extra information that's privy to me that you guys don't have, except for a little bit of a conversation I had with Chris Anthony after our interview a few days ago. But other than that, I don't have any special information. This is just my personal opinion about things, and it obviously does not reflect Aptera's thinking, and it probably doesn't reflect what most of you guys are thinking either. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this topic in the comments below. And also, again, nothing on this channel ever is like investment advice, so you should definitely never take it as investment advice. All right, so let's talk about finances. So we know that Aptera needs like 60 to 70 million dollars to make it to production, to low volume production, and probably another 100 million after that to make it to high volume production. This is from their SEC report. So we know that's the case. I was a little afraid before talking to Chris Anthony that Aptera was of the mindset that because they've been so wildly successful with crowdfunding up until now, that they thought that crowdfunding was going to get them to production, and that they were doing this road trip, and they were thinking that this road trip was going to bring up enough crowdfunding to make it to production. And I think, in my personal opinion, that is not a realistic thought process. I don't think that Aptera, that crowdfunding is going to get you $60 million all in one go that quickly to make it to production. I mean, it's possible, but based on how the latest crowdfunding run is going, they did not sell out of the 1,000 spots. There's still about 200 left. There's a few days left, but they didn't sell that out. And CES brought a lot of exposure to Aptera, and it did not lead to more crowdfunding. So I don't think it's an exposure problem at this point. Here's what I think is happening. I think people find out about it, and then they look back and they realize that Aptera has been around since 2020, and then they're like, oh, are they going to make it to production? I want to wait and see. The people that are are hardcore Aptera fans, I think we started back in 2020, 2021, 2022, that era. That was like a really exciting time when things were new and people thought it was going to happen very quickly. Now it's 2025. And I think when people find out about Aptera, they're very excited if they have never heard of it before. But then if they do a little bit of, research, they figure out, oh, it's been around for 5 years and they're close to production, but they haven't made it. And what's the deal? And that kind of holds them back from doing the crowdfunding. That's my guess. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just my guess. So I don't think crowdfunding is going to make it to production. But I thought that Aptera was fooling themselves into thinking that was going to happen. But I realized after talking to them that they don't think that. So Aptera is again, and every time I say this, I'm like, yeah, they're much smarter than we give them credit for. They realize this. They're very smart. They understand the reality of the situation, and they have another plan. They have another plan to get to production, and the plan is not crowdfunding. There's another plan. I'm not allowed to divulge the plan. I don't know. I only know very vague details of the plan. But again, that was off the record, so I can't tell you what it is. What I can tell you is that I think it's a realistic plan, and I think it's a good plan, or at least I think it's the best plan of the options they have in front of them. And what are the options that are in front of them? The options that are in front of them are, one, they go IPO, and they can either go IPO on a over-the-counter market, like a small OTC market, or they can go IPO on a major market like NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. And I think if they want to be successful via this route, they need to go on a major stock exchange. That's harder, obviously, because they need an underwriter and a bank and all this other stuff. And it's unclear how successful an IPO of a company that has not gone to production yet is. Now, if they had gone to production, I think an IPO would be fairly successful. And IPO is definitely going to bring them money if they decide to go that route. Like Sono did bring money; they got money from that, and Archimoto definitely got money from that. So going IPO does get you some money, but it depends on how successful it is when it hits the market. And I think going IPO will bring in a lot of people because then there is liquidity in there, and there's less fear of like having no liquidity, which current investors have basically no liquidity. All right, so the next option is debt financing, and debt financing I think would be extremely expensive. Interest rates are high. Aptera is super risky. All banks will understand that startups are extremely risky, and their chance of losing all of their loan is extremely high. So they're going to charge very high interest rates because of that risk, and also they're going to demand collateral. And the only real collateral Aptera has is their intellectual property, and they're going to have to decide whether the intellectual property is worth, 10, 20, 50, $100 million. I have no idea how to evaluate the value of intellectual property. My just gut feeling is that their intellectual property, I don't think is worth $100 million. Maybe it is, but I just don't think so. And it actually doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the bank thinks. And we'll find out if that's another option. The last option is the option that they've been courting for a while, which is large investors. And supposedly there were large investors that were turned down at some point in the past 4 or 5 years because they asked for stipulations that the founders were not comfortable with. I don't know if those stipulations are control, more board membership, or they demanded changes to the product, or they wanted production facilities set up in a certain way. But those were supposedly rejected. Now, I don't know if they think that now in retrospect, maybe they should not have rejected those offers. But as of yet, they have not been successful in getting a large whale investor or white knight to invest in them. I think it is true, the things that Chris Anthony is saying, that it's a new type of company. They don't know how to evaluate it. It is they see it as very risky, and they see it as they just can't figure out how to do the risk analysis, the risk benefit analysis on it. I think that's one. And then I think the other thing is that no one else has invested in it. I believe that if one large investor invests in it, like a well-known large investor, then other people will fall in line because they'll say like, oh, well, that rich guy that I respect, that is smart and knows stuff, invested in Aptera. There must be something to it, though. So I'm going to go in too. Right now, no one has gone in, and they're thinking, well, these other guys that I respect have heard the pitch and they haven't gone in. And so they must know something. Even though I want to go in, they must know something I don't know. So I'm going to hold off on it too. So I think if they get one large investor, that may kind of open the floodgates to other large investors. I'm really hoping that happens at some point because I think that's sort of the best case scenario. But I don't know how realistic, kind of depending on that, is. So those are the three options. But I was just very happy to find out that Aptera understands that crowdfunding alone is not going to get them to production. So small investors that are thinking, oh, we just need to get enough more crowdfunding, I think even Aptera understands that that's not a realistic option. So people who are in the crowdfunding campaign, they have to understand crowdfunding alone, very, very unlikely to get them to production. And they are essentially, keeping the company afloat while they await actual production funding. And if that's the case, they should understand what kind of position they're in financially. That's a super high risk proposition. And as I've said multiple times on this channel, I've personally invested in them it's not a lot, and it's an amount that I'm completely happy with losing. Well, I guess I'm not happy about losing it, but I'm fully expecting to lose it, and I think of it as a donation to a good cause in a way, which obviously is not the way that you should approach an actual investment. So I do not consider my investment in Aptera to be an actual investment. My actual investments are in like the S&P 500 index funds. That's my actual investment. This is basically, you should think of it as play money. If you have play money that you can throw away and you're totally fine if it just burns up, then that's the kind of money that you can invest in startups. If you're thinking this is a great way to make money, there's a 99% chance it's not a great way to make money. One, there's a high probability of failure for all startups. Two, even if it doesn't fail, who knows if it reaches the valuation that people are currently paying for this, which is about between $10 to $14 a share, depending on what kind of whether you're accredited or non-accredited investor. If they do IPO and there is some liquidity to the stock, we don't know if the stock's going to trade on the market at $10 a share, $14 a share, $30 a share, or $1 a share. You just don't know. So that's another kind of unknown risk of the whole thing. So people should think about that. Anyways, I think we are going to know within this year whether they get the funding to make it to production, and they make it to production. I personally think if they do not produce vehicles by the end of 2026, unless something really changes to change my mind, I think that this experiment is over. So let me know what you guys think. Like, what is your kind of endpoint for them? Is it end of 2026 or end of 2027? Or are you just happy to keep funding it as long as they're taking crowdfunding investment indefinitely, and just you're happy to wait for production indefinitely? Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. All right, thanks for watching, guys.